Hey Wargamers, Purple Druid here, and today we are going to talk about the Dungeon 25 process that we'll be using, outlining the Dungeon Wilderness Synthesis concept. I am a firm believer in holistic game design. This is the exact opposite of the so-called zero prep theory, where the Dungeon Master and the players get to discover the world at the same time. The holistic approach includes designing all parts of the setting together so they function as an integrated whole. This means building the preferred mechanics and aesthetic into the rules for the setting, such as random terrain, encounters, and events. When designing a wilderness area, it's a good practice to lay out the geology and geography first, then add more details like waterways, forests, and settlements. Once these broad ideas are in place, you can zoom in and add more detail. The dungeon or mega dungeon environment should be prepared in a similar way. The How to Host a Dungeon product is a great tool for this. It creates a physical framework and historical backdrop for the dungeon. For generating the Accursed Halls mega dungeon, according to the random rolls, the deepest and oldest parts of the mega dungeon were initially developed by two factions, demons and dark elves. Much of the subterranean structure still bears the imprint of the original civilizations, now long gone. Subsequent exploration and colonization has brought new factions into the environment. These newcomers have built their own distinctive habitats, sometimes on top of the ruins of the elder races. Part 1 of the series will include an introduction to the concepts of what I call dungeon wilderness synthesis. The dungeon does not exist in a vacuum. First, the dungeon is an actively hostile environment seeking to spew its chaos up into the world above. Second, the dungeon is a place of refuge and sustenance for creatures which also can be found marauding on the surface. The larger and or more intelligent monsters will often make their lair underground. Part 2 will cover the construction of the dungeon framework using the Atelier Clandestine Mega Dungeon Generator format alongside Tony Dollar's How to Host a Dungeon procedure for creating a history of the dungeon and the factions. Part 3 will focus on creating the surface maps for the area of each entrance to the dungeon. The surface maps will depict a large 5-mile hex, subdivided into 1-mile hexes, which are in turn subdivided into 0.2 of a mile or 350-yard hexes. If there are any surface encounters which result in a massed combat, each 0.2 of a mile hex can be represented on the tabletop by a 35-inch by 35-inch battle space. The detailed maps will make setting up the terrain for such a battle very simple. Once the surface hex has been mapped and layers populated, we'll begin drawing and keying the various subterranean zones found beneath the 5-mile hex. Each zone will be the focus of a week's development. We'll roll randomly for the number of rooms or areas in a zone, as well as for the distribution of loot, monsters, traps, etc. The procedure for this is found in the Dungeon 25 section of the Memoriam stack. The link is in the description below. I'm looking forward to exploring this with you, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.